Hey guys, Kevin here, and today I want to talk about the Knight of the Laughing Tree story, told by Mira Reed in A Storm of Swords. The story is about the great tourney at Harrenhal, which ended with Prince Rhaegar Targaryen riding past his wife, Princess Elia Martell of Dorne, and crowning Lyanna Stark the Queen of Love and Beauty. The story depicts Howland Reed visiting the tourney after spending a winter with the Green Men on the Isle of Faces. He is assaulted by 3 squires, and later a mystery knight known as the Knight of the Laughing Tree defeats the squires' masters as they sit as champions in jousting. The identity of the Knight of the Laughing Tree is well known at this point to book readers. The biggest clue is how confused Jojen Reed is that Bran has never heard the story from his father. Ned never told Bran this story because it's about someone he never talks about.
Your Aunt Lyanna.
My father never talked about her.
My Aunt Lyanna. I've seen her statue in the crypt. My father never talked about her.
Lyanna Stark is the Knight of the Laughing Tree. Some argue that Howland could be the Mystery Knight, but Howland was neither a great fighter, nor is he good on horseback. In the story, Howland is beaten up by 3 squires. The Tower of Joy battle happens a couple years after the Great Tourney, and if the show is to be believed, Howland is the first person taken down in that fight, though he does survive his injuries and helps Ned Stark defeat Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. It is beyond reason to suggest that this Crannogman was able to beat 3 well-trained knights, especially since the Crannogman in the story acknowledges that he's not capable of such a feat. 2 other contenders for the Mystery Knight, the Wild Wolf Brandon Stark and the Quiet Wolf Ned Stark, can be eliminated because neither would hide their face while honorably defending their bannermen. Ned also doesn't fight in tourneys.
I don't fight in tournaments.
No? Getting a little old for it?
I don't fight in tournaments. That's when I fight a man for real. I don't want to know what I can do.
This leaves the Young Wolf as one of the final contenders. The future First Ranger of the Night's Watch offers Howland armor to fight with, but there is nothing to suggest that he was inclined to fight in his stead, unlike the Wolf Maid, who had already beaten up 3 squires for the Crannogman. Benjen Stark was also simply not as good as a fighter as his sister. When Bran first begins using his powers in Bloodraven's cave, one of the visions he sees is of Lyanna and Benjen sparring. The girl was the older of the 2. Arya, Bran thought eagerly, as he watched her leap onto a rock and cut at the boy. But that couldn't be right. If the girl was Arya, the boy was Bran himself, and he had never worn his hair so long, and Arya never beat me playing swords, the way this girl is beating him. She slashed the boy across his thigh so hard that his leg went out from under him, and he fell into a pool and began to splash and shout. "You be quiet, stupid," the girl said, tossing her own branch aside. "It's just water. Do you want old Nan to hear and run tell father?" She knelt and pulled her brother from the pool, but before she got him out again, the 2 of them were gone. In the vision, Lyanna wishes to keep her fighting a secret, something the Mystery Knight also does. The Knight of the Laughing Tree speaks in a booming voice, obviously to mask the true sound of her own voice. Lyanna is often compared to Arya, very often. Harwin, a guard of Ned Stark and son of the Master of Horse at Winterfell, tells Arya that she rides like a Northman, just as Lyanna had. Lyanna's prowess on horseback was well known.
Stop showing off! Lyanna!
Brandon Stark's old lover, Lady Barbary Dustin, remarks that Brandon loved to ride, that Lyanna took after him in that, and refers to the 2 Starks as a pair of centaurs. Roose Bolton compares his own son Domeric to Lyanna Stark, saying, "Horses, the boy was mad for horses. Lady Dustin will tell you. Not even Lord Rickard's daughter could outrace him. And that one was half horse herself. Redford said he showed great promise in the list. A great jouster must be a great horseman first." When contemplating Sir Loras Tyrell's prowess in jousting, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Jaime Lannister, is stated to have always believed that jousting was 3/4 horsemanship. Since we know that Lyanna was a good fighter, good enough to easily beat the first Ranger of the Night's Watch, good enough to beat 3 squires with ease. And we know that horsemanship plays the critical role in jousting, and that Lyanna Stark was a paragon of horsemanship. It stands to reason that the Knight of the Laughing Tree was Lyanna Stark herself, coming to Howland's rescue for a second time in the story. After defeating the 3 squires and the 3 knights, the Knight of the Laughing Tree disappears, and Mad King Aerys declares the Mystery Knight his enemy, and demands that he be unmasked. Prince Rhaegar Targaryen returns from his search with Lyanna's shield, claiming that he could not find the Mystery Knight himself, but later hands Lyanna a crown of blue winter roses and names her the Queen of Love and Beauty. Many fans suspect that this is the story of how Jon's parents met and fell in love, that Rhaegar, in naming Lyanna the Queen of Love and Beauty, acknowledged her as the Knight of the Laughing Tree he was tasked to find. For better or worse, Lyanna's prowess and gallantry contrast nicely with Rhaegar's frail and sickly wife. Others, believing that Rhaegar was obsessed with prophecy and planned to overthrow his father, the Mad King, believe that Rhaegar staged this tournament and chose a crown of blue winter roses because they were Lyanna's favorite. In any event, the Knight of the Laughing Tree episode was a critical part of Rhaegar and Lyanna's story, and to the Song of Ice and Fire as a whole. But that is not the only mystery this story contains and potentially solves. Another character in this story is the maid with laughing purple eyes, Lady Ashara Dayne, sister of the Sword of the Morning. Ashara can be removed from this story completely, and have no impact on the Mystery Knight story whatsoever. So why is she there? Meera goes so far as to describe how her father saw her dance with Sir Barristan Selmy, who fought alongside Prince Rhaegar at the Trident, Prince Oberyn Martell, brother-in-law of Prince Rhaegar, who fought for the Dragon Prince during Robert's Rebellion, Sir Jon Connington, Prince Rhaegar's dear friend, and father figure to a boy claiming to be Rhaegar's son, Aegon, and Ned Stark, uncle to Rhaegar's son, Jon Snow. What role does Ashara Dayne play in this mess? Ashara is widely believed within the series to be Ned's lover, and mother of his bastard, a theory that we can now put to rest. But as Ned and Robert rode around in the north, it is stated that troubled sleep was no stranger to him. He had lived his lives for 14 years, and yet they still haunted him at night. One lie is that the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna was his own bastard, but what other lies did Ned keep from the war? Ashara Dayne conceived a child at the tourney of Harrenhal, or shortly thereafter. Though Ned and Ashara were rumored to be lovers, this was clearly not the case, and this child is clearly not his. Readers spent an entire book inside Ned Stark's head, and not once did he think of the so-called love of his life. The ruse was useful in stopping others in the series from guessing the true parentage of Jon Snow. The official story is that Ashara Dayne had given birth to a stillborn, and threw herself from the Palestone Tower. There is much reason to doubt this story, however. The child is often considered to be Jon Snow, which is not the case, but plants the idea that this child is still alive, and that Ashara in turn is also still alive. The current Lord of Starfall is a boy called Ned Dayne. He is the squire to Lord Beric Dondarrion, and regrets not having had the honor of meeting Eddard Stark of Winterfell, the man who allegedly killed his uncle and drove his aunt to kill herself. Ned Dayne's name is Edric, not Eddard, but the nickname Ned is still a way of honoring Ned Stark. Why? Why would a man name his son after someone responsible for the deaths of his 2 siblings? Ned Stark did indeed kill Sir Arthur Dayne. Some readers had their doubts, but I did not for reasons I go to in my Tower of Joy video. But Ashara Dayne is almost certainly alive. When Sir Barristan Selmy thinks of Ashara's child, he claims that her death may have been avoided if she had looked to him instead of Stark. Looking implies that Ashara sought the help of the Starks, and given the existence of Lord Ned Dayne, she must have received it. But who are the Starks protecting in the story of the Knight of the Laughing Tree? Who else is Ned protecting with his lies? Before Barristan makes this comment, he thinks of how Daenerys and her purple eyes remind him of Ashara's daughter, but Ashara's daughter had been a stillborn, and his fair lady had thrown herself from a tower soon after, mad with grief for the child she had lost, and perhaps for the man who had dishonored her at Harrenhal as well. Ashara Dayne sought the help of the Starks for the man who dishonored her at Harrenhal, and gave birth to his daughter. Barristan is likely taking a guess at the child's gender, or outright knows it was a girl. Before this comment, the gender of Ashara Dayne's child is never mentioned or questioned, as everyone assumes it's Jon Snow. But Martin plants the idea that this child is alive, and is a girl. So who is this daughter of Ashara Dayne? Is there a girl who was born during Robert's Rebellion, like Robb Stark, who would fit this timeline and solve this mystery? There is. Meera Reed, the person telling us the story of the Night of the Laughing Tree, who inexplicably adds Ashara Dayne to the story of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen and her father. The daughter of the man who remembers every man she danced with the night before the tournament, who mentions how her father saw a maid with laughing purple eyes, a description that hints at flirtation. Ashara Dayne is brought up earlier in the story, when Bran asks if Lady Whent, the daughter of Harrenhal, was a fair maid. Meera responds by claiming that Elia Martell was fairer, and that the favors of her dozen lady companions were sought after by the knights. One of those companions was Ashara Dayne, making this another instance in which Meera talks up the desirability of Ashara Dayne. Bran interrupts Meera after this, asking, "This isn't one of those love stories, is it?" Meera does not deny that this is indeed a love story. But when Bran says that the Night of the Laughing Tree should have named Lyanna the Queen of Love and Beauty, Meera responds, "She was. But that's a sadder story," suggesting that the love story she is telling is not the one of Rhaegar and Lyanna. Similarly, when Meera refuses to tell Bran about her father's time with the Green Men, she says, "But that's another story, and not for me to tell." Why is her father's visit to Harrenhal her story to tell, but not the story of her father's visit to the Isle of Faces? Perhaps it's because his visit to Harrenhal is the story of how her parents met, how Meera Reed herself was conceived, of the deep debt the Reeds owed to the Starks, which brought Meera and Jojen to Bran's side. The theory that Ashara Dayne is the wife of Howland Reed and mother of Meera and Jojen is the brainchild of Maiden and Warrior on Westeros.org. The link to the original theory is in the description, and I encourage you to check it out. As stated earlier, Meera is around Robb's age, which means that she was born during Robert's Rebellion just as Robb was. Before the Great Tourney of Harrenhal, Howland spent years of winter on the Isle of Faces, and left Greywater just as he turned to manhood. There was no time for him to be married, or even to have found a betrothed, but sometime in the months between the Tourney of Harrenhal and the outbreak of the war, Howland must have been married and conceived a child. Meera Reed is introduced in A Clash of Kings as the heir to Greywater Watch. In the Six Kingdoms of Aegon the Conqueror, this is not allowed as the eldest male always inherits. This is the custom in the Seventh Kingdom, however, Dorne, where Ashara Dayne is from, and where the eldest child inherits regardless of gender. Meera's eyes are not mentioned as anything spectacular, but Jojen's are an unnatural moss green. This color is a consequence of his green genes, as well as his sickly health, and his natural eye color is not known to us. It could very well be purple. Jojen also suffers from Greywater fever, which may hint that his parentage is not entirely of the neck. The Dornish and the Crannogmen also share many similarities. They both tend to be small in stature, known for their guerrilla tactics, which are considered cowardly, the use of copper and bronze armor, and both groups are generally looked down upon by others in the Seven Kingdom. The Crannogmen are cursed as mudmen and frog-eaters, and both mud and frog are terms used to describe a Dornishman, Prince Quentyn Martell, during his journey to Meereen. So Lady Ashara would have felt more at home with Howland than any of the other lords and knights and princes that she had frequent contact with in King's Landing. Howland Reed is the closest confidant of Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell, and this fact may have been useful in marrying a mudman to a woman of one of the oldest and most honorable houses in the Seven Kingdoms. The story of Ashara's death, and a made-up love affair between the two, would also help protect the prince Sir Arthur Dayne died protecting. Such honors bestowed upon House Dayne could lead a man to name his heir after the Warden of the North. We know that Ashara Dayne hooked up with someone at the Tourney of Harrenhal, leading Sir Barristan Selmy, who was in love with her, to claim that she had been dishonored. We know that Ashara Dane looked to the Starks for help, with what eventually became known to all as her pregnancy. We know that Lady Ashara's child was likely a girl, and that around the same time, Howland was married and had Mira. We know that Howland was so taken with the Lady of Starfall that the description of Harrenhal's feast is interrupted to state that he saw her, and that she looked at him with laughing, flirtatious eyes. Perhaps Mira wasn't just telling the story of Bran's family in the Night of the Laughing Tree. Perhaps she was telling the story of her own family as well.